From Finding Nemo to Peter Pan, here are your top 10 terrifying Disney theories you need to pray aren't real. I'm Melissa Melotti, and Connor Meek did half of this script but couldn't be here, so I wanted to shout him out for, being cool and helping me out. In our number 10 spot, we have Finding Nemo, the 5 stages of grief. A large community on Reddit was shocked to hear of one person's theory about the infamous Disney movie Finding Nemo. The user concluded that the movie was demonstrating the 5 stages of grief. The theory is that Nemo actually died with his siblings and mother, and that Marlin imagines a single egg surviving, demonstrating the first stage of denial, where he refused to accept that the horrific event happened. Then it becomes anger when Nemo does anything even remotely dangerous, then moves into bargaining, which Marlin does quite frequently on his quest to find Nemo. Then he eventually feels despair when he becomes ready to give up on the search, and then comes acceptance, where he finally is at peace and learns to not obsess over Nemo. I wouldn't put it past Disney to have at least developed the idea from this starting point. This theory feels pretty accurate to me. If you're liking this video so far, don't forget to smash that like button, as it will really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have the Little Mermaid Hunter. In the original Little Mermaid, we learn that Ariel has a mother, but we never learn what happened to her until the 2008 movie The Little Mermaid: Ariel's Beginning. That is when we find out that Ariel's mother Athena was killed by a pirate ship, which is why King Triton hates humans. Well, perhaps you may have heard of another Disney tale with pirates called Peter Pan, and in this tale, Captain Hook, the villain of the story, is the captain of a pirate ship. We also see a group of mermaids in Peter Pan at Mermaid's Lagoon, and one of them looks an awful lot like Ariel, and she is even wearing a gold crown! Probably the queen. So that of course has led to the theory that it was Captain Hook's ship that killed Ariel's mother, and therefore Captain Hook killed her. That one blew my mind. In our number 8 spot, we have the Frozen Wisdom. I don't need to pray for this theory to be real or not, because it's awesome and it just deserved an honorable mention. People are convinced that the writers of Frozen 2 may have perhaps gone to a lot of therapy in their time, or worked with psychologists to help write the film, because the film is filled with the most amount of wisdom. The type of wisdom you only hear from your therapist. Just do the next right thing, Anna sings as she makes the horrible realization that her sister Elsa and her friend Olaf have passed away. Anna sings about the grief that she is feeling and describes a heaviness that only people that have truly suffered from depression would understand. She goes on to coach herself to do the next right thing, take one step at a time. The best piece of advice you could give someone when they're in the thick of it all. In another case, the people of Arendelle have to evacuate, and after the chaos, Olaf lets all of the young ones play with him and stick icicles in him. He says to them, "We call this controlling what you can when things feel out of control." Another wonderful piece of advice. In our number 7 spot, we have Peter Pan the Psychopath. Now we all know that Neverland is a place where you never have to grow up and you can be a kid forever. And that's all Peter wants for his friends, whether you're a lost boy or a darling. Sure, fun and games all day sounds amazing. But what if you get tired of childhood and decide it's time to grow up? Well, this theory suggests that Peter doesn't take too kindly to adults, even if they started off as friends. In fact, he hates adults so much that he wants to kill them. There are few adults in the movie, the main ones we see being Captain Hook and the crew of the Jolly Roger, and we know how much Peter hates them, so what if the Lost Boys decided it's time to become lost men? Well, following this theory, Peter kills any of the Lost Boys who try to grow up and finds new ones to take their place, so he has friends to play with forever. Captain Hook was actually one of the Lost Boys in the past and learned the truth of who or what Peter is and escapes, rescuing others as he does, and they grow up into the crew. Ooh, this is why Hook hates Pan so much, so maybe Hook wasn't the villain after all. In our number 6 spot we have a scorned lover. Ooh, this is a juicy fan theory that honestly feels like whomever came up with it must have also known the pain of being betrayed. The theory is around the movie The Beauty and the Beast, and the theory goes that the witch or enchantress that had created the curse that turned the prince into the beast and all of his royal courtiers into what are usually inanimate objects did so because she was a lover scorned. She and the beast were former lovers and he dismissed her once he got bored of her, which is something that royals were known to do in the past. The courtiers also would have treated her badly because they are loyal to the prince, so she placed a curse on them to teach them a lesson about respecting women. I see it. It makes more sense than a witch trapping the whole house just because the prince was prideful. There was clearly a deeper lesson afoot. In our number 5 spot we have Eeyores Origin. Eeyore, everyone's favorite depressed donkey. While everyone in the 100-acre wood is usually pretty carefree and happy, Eeyore seems to always be in a bad mood, and I would be too if my tail kept getting lost or stolen and my house collapsed all the time. But some theorists think that there is a more sinister reason for the gloomy nature. But for that we need to go all the way back to the 1940s movie Pinocchio. In the film, our puppet protagonist becomes a real boy, and after some wild adventuring, he is rewarded with a trip to Pleasure Island, a land where you can do anything you want and no grown-ups can stop you. But there is a curse placed on the island, and anyone who indulges is turned into a donkey. And we see in the movie that many of the donkeys can still talk. So the theory suggests that Eeyore was once a real boy, and he made the mistake of going to Pleasure Island and was cursed to take his more furry form. But it seems he managed to escape to the safety of the 100-acre wood, and now he lives out the rest of his days longing to regain his lost humanity. In our number 4 spot we have Moana died. This is yet another very interesting and thought out theory around the movie Moana. In the beginning of the movie, Moana is on her boat stuck in a thunderstorm when the boat was struck by lightning. It is theorized that she died on the boat, which is most likely what would happen to any living being. The theory is expanded to state that Moana's spirit is completing the quest for the rest of the journey, and that is why she only meets gods and spirits the rest of the way. She is on their plane of existence. Then the theorist went on to state that after she finishes her quest, her spirit goes back into her body, and that is when she goes back to her island. Ooh, I bet you that some of these Reddit theorists are really just Disney employees, just, revealing secrets that they could only reveal anonymously. In our number 3 spot we have The Fly. In the movie The Emperor's New Groove, Yzma has all sorts of potions to turn people into any animal you can think of, and she turns Kuzco into a llama. But I'm sure this isn't the only time she's done something like this. While most of the animals in the movie can't be understood by humans, like the squirrel only being able to communicate to Kronk through squeaks and gestures, there are obviously animals that can talk. Kuzco as the llama, Yzma as a cat, and there is one other strange example that throws the whole world of the film for a loop: the fly stuck in the spider's web. While walking in the forest, Kuzco sees a fly trapped in a web, and it is yelling out for help, but it's devoured quickly. Now, while this is an obvious reference to the 1958's The Fly, it also begs the question of who else has Yzma turned into animals. Was this one of Kuzco's once loyal subjects? And are there other jungle creatures who used to be humans out there? Let's hope they at least got to be better ones than a fly. In our number 2 spot we have the evil trolls. Okay, here's another Frozen theory for you. What if Prince Hans wasn't actually evil? What if he was manipulated by magic? A lot of fans online thought that Prince Hans, who had a plot twist of being the overarching villain of the story, was a little out of left field. He was seemingly so good for most of the story, and then all of a sudden he was evil. Well, one Reddit user had a very good theory on this. The trolls, who are a part of Kristoff's family, have some very rare magic, and as they have Kristoff's best interests at heart, perhaps they used magic to change Anna and Hans's path and turn Hans evil so that Kristoff could end up with Anna. Arguably, it's probably for the best, as she actually had a friendship with Kristoff, and all she knew about Prince Hans was that they had a few things in common, like chocolate and sandwiches. Not a solid basis for a lasting relationship, but still, perhaps the trolls altered Anna and Prince Hans's path, and they are the true villains of the story. And finally, we reach our number 1 spot, Walt's mom. Walt Disney, of course. Ever wonder why none of the princesses or main characters in Disney movies seem to have mothers, or at least ones who are still alive. I mean, Cinderella, Bambi, Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, the list goes on and on. Well, some think that this is actually related to a terrible tragedy in the Disney family. In 1937, Walt and his brother Roy bought their parents a house with their newfound success, a dream for anyone. But unfortunately, this would be a terrible mistake. One day, their mother Flora called Walt to complain that their furnace was leaking gas. Walt sent some folks from the studio over to fix it, and they did, or so they thought. The next morning, the housekeeper returned to find Mr. and Mrs. Disney unconscious and dragged them out into the front lawn. Their father was taken to a hospital and survived, but unfortunately their mother passed away at the scene. This tragedy was well known by those who worked at the studio, and many thought that it affected the stories they told going forward, that Walt was so traumatized that he passed the trauma onto the characters in the films as a way to move on himself. Either way, it's interesting to look into the man who created an empire. I'm Melissa Melotti, and I hope that you have a good day, sir.